this is the Hoof GP, and we've just dealt with a cow that ended up far more difficult than we ever thought could have been possible when you're just trimming some cow's feet. In this video, we deal with these hugely overgrown feet. She has an abscess on her back right foot, but all of that comes after trying to free her head from these bars. This is the Hoof GP. So this cow has got some seriously bad feet. She's in the top pen and she's done something bloody stupid, for want of a better word. Yep, she's got her head stuck. We're not trying to get her out straight away because she needs to calm down and it takes time anyway. And actually she's totally fine, she's just got her head stuck between two bars. There's a little gap where something's been installed and it's just enough space for her to reach her head over and then slide her head down and get her head stuck.
This should be fairly obvious to everyone watching, but really all she needs to do is relax and lift her head up high enough so that it reaches beyond those bars, and she will be completely free without any hassle. Although that is much more easily said than done.
Come on, lass, you're alright. She's pulling back, and that's making it much worse. So I just let her stand for 2 seconds to see if it...
Before switching the camera on, she had already been standing like this for 10 or so minutes, so there's little chance, if any, that she'll pull her head out by herself. We can't just leave her here and hope that she does in the next hour or two, because if something goes wrong, she could very easily choke herself or even break a leg.
Right, lift her tail straight up in the air, Craig. Totally straight up. No, don't pull it. No, stand behind her. That's as straight as possible. Right here, and then push forward.
The rope Kevin's attaching around her head is known as a halter, and it's for situations just like this, or for leading cows around a ring. But her head is just too stuck.
That's what we wanted. Go this.
As she's getting more and more wound up, the situation is just becoming even worse. So we're going to need to try something a bit more radical. Kevin is away for a load-all, basically a telehandler that we'll be able to put in underneath the body of the cow and lift her up out of these bars to be clear and free. But I'm going to try everything I can before we need to use that.
That's it. Yeah, good girl. Good girl. She's pulling right back and her ears are completely wedged. So weirdly we need her to relax, but at the same time we need to force her head up out of here.
Things like this can go from a situation which doesn't seem all that dangerous right now to something that can escalate and elevate very quickly, which is why I may seem a little panicked.
One, 2, 3, go. Oh, girl.
All she needs to do is lean forward and slide her head up out of those bars. Maybe one final push from me and a lever from Craig at the front will do it. Or maybe not. There's nothing else for it. As delicately but as quickly as possible, we're going to do what we can to free her. Finally, she's free, and she walks away as if nothing has happened.
Farming can look rough sometimes, can't it? It's just a pure panic to try and get these cows out of situations that they get themselves into sometimes. We'll leave her to calm down before we trim her.
None of that was dramatised for the camera. If a cow breaks a leg in a situation like that, it often and usually is the end of their lives, unfortunately. And now that she's free and walking around, we can all see why she's desperately in need of a bit of attention. Those back feet are extremely overgrown, so much so that it's affecting the way she walks.
So Kevin obviously went and told the farmer about the cow getting stuck and explained which cow it was, and the farmer, this kind of makes more sense now, the farmer told him that he's been trying for months to catch this cow to be able to trim her feet, which is why they're so overgrown. She had a problem a few months ago and he has tried and tried and tried to catch her with the auto shed gate, and she's been missing it every time. So she's an escape artist.
So be here as the night starts falling. Let my fingers walk over your head. We got nothing to be scared of. I'd rather be with you than by myself.
Sorry, this has just popped in my head. Look, obviously she had her head stuck there and she's just walked into the crush and these have closed round about her. She must be thinking, not again. Seriously? Again? Don't worry, love. This is easier. Here's the reason she's in. Just look how flat-footed she is. This is laminitis. When we pick this up, all of this is going to be stretched out. I'm not sure how much we can do about it, but we can definitely fix this angle. Her foot is sitting like this when it should be sitting like this. It's exactly as I thought. She's got laminitis or choriitis or whatever you want to call it these days. I'm being like that because they keep changing the name of it for some reason. She's had inflammation of the lamina corium. That is the part that holds the inside of the foot to the hoof capsule itself. You see, the hoof capsule is like this. It's kind of like a cup sitting on top of what would be our foot. So the cup or the hoof capsule is your shoe. The foot is your foot inside the shoe, if that makes sense. And the part that connects her foot to her shoe has become inflamed and it's completely blown the whole thing apart and stretched out, which is why her feet have ended up like this. If you look carefully here, you can see lots of little lines. Those lines are the lamina folds. They're like lots of little fingers that interconnecting, like Craig just did in the background.
Just about like this.
One hand is the foot, the other hand is the hoof capsule, and the interconnect, and that is what has become inflamed here. We can do something about it, but we can't completely rectify it. We definitely won't if we just keep talking. So my hand is a good measure. My hand is about 75 millimeters or about 3 inches wide from here to here. If I put my hand around the front, it should be the same length, but it's definitely not. Look at what needs to come off. Everything below my pinky needs to be removed. So I'm going to take like a wedge from here all the way down here and remove this portion of her foot to get her hoof angle back to where it should be so that she's much more comfortable.
Cows' feet like this require a huge amount more time, patience and grinder work, and that is exactly what's going to happen here. If I wanted to remove more hoof horn more quickly, I could apply a greater pressure down through the grinder blade and take off much more hoof horn much faster than I am. But in reality, I'm constantly re-evaluating the hoof as I go. If I just stop for a second, you can see the stretching of the lamina there. This yellowness has been caused by the inflammation. It's called serum coming out of the blood into the hoof as it's forming and growing. That should not be like that. Forgetting how awkward it must be for her to walk on these overgrown feet, the inflammation of the lamina corium will in itself be uncomfortable. Imagine if the interior of your foot was swollen with every step that you take. It could be excruciating.
As you can see from all of the slowly progressive grinder work, this is slow, tedious work, but this isn't a normal hoof. I can't just wail on in or charge on in willy-nilly. I need to be careful and constantly reanalyze the foot because her foot is not normal. So I am trying it to her requirements, not to every other cow's requirements.
These feet are extremely wide as well as overgrown, and that's because of the laminitis. It affects the feet in such a way that they spread out. I'm modelling out the sole here, and that is to avoid typical sole ulcers. In other words, overbearing of this part of the hoof. But these are not her only problems, and I'm hoping that more than a few of you have spotted what else is wrong. Come on then, in the comments right now, no cheating. Did you spot what else is seriously wrong with this cow's foot? Because I can assure you, it's causing her some real pain. Do you see it now? She has digital dermatitis in between her two claws towards the heel area, but that is something we can fix with this Repiderma pretty darn quickly.
If we come around this side again, you can see now it's the same length as my foot. No. If we come around this side, you can see now it's the same length as my hand. And if we zoom out to the old one, I'm fairly sure you can see a big difference. Or at least I hope you can. So this is the foot that's been sticking up in the air. Look at this curve. She's walking on this part of her foot and here, when she should be using this part. But if we quickly flick back to how she was walking after she got her head stuck, unstuck, out of those poles, you can see exactly that. Hopefully it will get her foot back up on, but to be honest, it will be a struggle.
In itself, getting her foot back to what resembles a normal hoof is a fairly straightforward task. But this cow has stretched her deep flexor tendon. If every one of you who is watching this video right now reaches down behind your kneecap, you'll feel a tendon, a bit like a piece of string, right behind your knee. Cows have a very similar tendon known as the deep flexor tendon, and in this cow's case, it has been stretched, so it is no longer holding that outer or near glottis, as we look at it right now, in the correct position. It has overextended, so it's not as tight as it once was, meaning that getting this cow to walk much more comfortably, and as she should, is a real task. Although it's taking its time, we are much closer to where this cow's hoof needs to be. Just a few more swipes of the grinder and I'm hoping we'll have made a real difference. From this angle, these cow's feet look far from perfect. But just try to hold on to the end of this video and we'll all see the fruits of our labour when she walks out of the crush.
And you see all of this bruising caused by the overburdening of this foot all the way down here. I hope not, because that's not bruising. That is pigmentation. This is bruising. This part here is the actual bruising. This is just the colour of her skin, or hoof in this case.
That's her we can all hear in the background, starting to protest at being in this crush for an extended amount of time. But I'm sure in an hour or two, she will be very thankful of her time in this little green goddess of a crush.
I think that looks a bit better.
We'll just give both of her front feet a very quick once over and make sure they're also in tip-top condition. And then it's time for the end result, and for her to leave this crush and get back to the green grass of her field that she calls home.
Right, don't crucify me in the comments. Clearly not perfect, far from it in fact. But remember, her feet are not as they should be. They are not, I nearly said normal, but to her she is normal. But they're not standard feet. If we compare this foot to how it was before, I think we can all see a pretty massive difference. She's standing on those grids as well, so that's kind of making it look a bit pants.
Her back right foot is also looking much better, but we won't know the true results until we see her walking.
And unfortunately, there's not much we can do about that. She is being treated for it, but it's still got an infection, so we'll spray it with the antibiotical spray that they have on the farm here already.
Spray, dry, and reapply.
Oh, this has been a long trim.
Right, finally we get to see how she walks. And as we can all see, her foot is much more flatly on the ground, which is exactly what I was hoping for. Although admittedly, because of that abscess in her back right leg, she's clearly still uncomfortable.
This was the Hoof GP. And by the way, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, stands to reason you must have sort of kind of enjoyed it in a weird way. Yeah, make sure you subscribed if you're watching this right now.